Welcome to Lesson 3 in Flash. In this lesson, we're going to talk about shapes and the drawing tool. So let's get started. First thing we need to do is go to our toolbar and find the rectangle tool. You'll notice when I click on the rectangle tool, I have several options appear, both on the toolbar on the left-hand side and in the properties panel on the right-hand side. On the right-hand side, I have different options such as stroke, fill, size of the stroke, style of the stroke, which you can further go into the options of by clicking the pencil on the right-hand side, the scale, the cap, the joiners, and different radius options for your rectangle. You can unlock this option here and make one angle 50, another one 35, and the top left one 10, and that would be your rectangle. You can always just link them together to have one that's consistent. For now, let's look at the options on the bottom of the toolbar. We have one button that says Object Drawing and another button that says Snap to Object. Snap to Objects means that it's going to snap to these invisible grid lines that are on the stage that are not visible unless you turn it on. You can simply turn this on or off, and when you draw different shapes later or draw lines with the brush tool later, it will also try to snap to the closest shape. So if you don't want that option on, you can just simply untick that. Let's look at our other option, Object Drawing. I'm going to leave it unchecked, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to then click my selector tool and then click on it, and you'll notice that what I have drawn is a shape. It's not an object, it is a shape, which means, and as you can see by these little dots here, that it is highly editable. It is like a cracker. You can break it into a million pieces. What I mean by that is this. Let me deselect it. If I just highlight this little sliver right here, you'll notice that only that sliver of the rectangle is selected. I can then break it apart. Same for that one right there. The same for that one right there. I can make as many little edits to this as I want to and move it out. If I were to drag this object on top of it there, and then select it again, it would rejoin the ones that I tore it apart from. If I drew one square that is a shape, let's change the color, and let's redraw another one on top of it. So now I have two. I have the 1 and the 2. If I were to take that green shape and move it, you will see that I've just taken a huge massive chunk out of the bottom shape. And you'll also notice that I didn't grab the stroke around the shape, I only grabbed the fill. When you have a shape, so when your object drawing button is not pressed down, you are able to separate stroke and fill from an object. You're also able to do all these things like taking huge chunks when you draw one shape on top of another. Again, if I just grab my circle tool and just draw on top of it and then move it, I will have taken a huge chunk out and left the stroke behind. So be very careful when you do shape drawings before you start your animation that you know what mode you're in, because if you do all of your drawings like this and then you go to move it, you're going to find that you may have screwed everything up because you didn't actually make it a drawing object. Let's talk about drawing objects right now. Go back to my circle. I'm going to press down that button that says Object Drawing, and when I draw my circle, you'll notice on the right it says Drawing Object. I can still edit stroke. I can still edit fill. I can still make changes to it after drawing. That is one of the greatest benefits of a drawing object, is being able to change it after the fact. I can also, let me deselect that circle, I can also come in and draw another shape on top of it, move it, and nothing happens. I can also keep that one behind because it was drawn first. You can even just bring it to the front. So with drawing objects, it's more of a traditional, I'm going to draw this object, move it around, change the order. It does not affect what's on top of it. And you can also come in and change drawing objects, change the shape with your selection tool. Sometimes. There we go. I had to go into the properties of it to change it. Okay. Let's talk about one more type of shape. That is the primitive. Rectangle primitive tool, you'll notice that when you draw it, you still have the curves and the dots on the sides. You'll notice also that you still have the option to change the corners and everything else after the fact. This is the big benefit of the primitive shape, is that you can come in and change more options after you've drawn it. So if you're looking to make a shape and come in and mess with the corners like I did, and even take it out again, and you can even come in and mess with the Bezier handles if you want to, then the primitive tool is for you. Let's talk about our brush and our pencil. Our pencil is very straightforward. We also have object drawing and non-object drawing for the pencil, but we also have different pencil modes. In straighten mode, Flash will attempt to straighten your line for you. In smooth mode, it will attempt to smooth it out as best it can. In ink mode, that is, however shaky your hand is, however detailed you want to make it, Flash will do its best to try and leave it however you drew it. You see that there was still some smoothing there. However, for the most part, Flash does try to leave it alone. The pencil tool also has no fill. It only has a stroke. There's nothing to fill. I mean, it's just like using a pencil on a piece of paper. You can still come in and mess with the stroke later. You can come in and change the type of stroke, but obviously there's no fill. Brush tool is the same with just a few more bells and whistles on the left-hand side. This one is just a fill, no stroke. Come in. You have different options over here now. You have your brush shape. You have use pressure. If you're using a pad, the harder you press on the tablet, the bigger the stroke and the wider the stroke will be. Normally you want to leave that one off. It also has a function to use the tilt. So if you wanted to tilt your stylus in one direction or another, it would be able to sense in what way your stylus pen was going. You also have some other options over here. I'm going to go ahead and draw a circle to demonstrate them. Change that back to solid and up the stroke a little bit. Okay. For the brush, you can do paint normal, which means you're going to be painting as normal. You can do paint fills, meaning you only will paint inside the filled area. If I start my stroke on the inside and I do this, it's only going to be, well, it should have only been on the inside. So it's a handy tool if you're wanting to paint shapes. There we go. So stay inside the shapes. The third one is paint behind. So if I paint here, rather, let me back up. If I paint behind and I change my stroke so you can see it, I've already painted this one before. If I come in and paint on top of it, it puts it behind it. So whatever order you've drawn on, it'll remember it. So if I'm going to paint normal here, la 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 la, and then I'm going to come in and grab a green, or make that green, come in, back to my brush, paint behind, it's now going to put behind that stroke. Paint selection, if I only have that selected, I can come in and just paint selection. Works better on solid colored shapes, not strokes. Paint inside. If I start on the inside of the circle, it should stay on the inside of the circle, like so. Okay. In this lesson, we've covered some different shapes, some different options with shapes, and the pencil and brush tool. A lot of the stuff that I've shown you, you'll probably want to play around with the options on the toolbar, the options on the right-hand side. That's the way you're going to get really good at them and really remember what they do. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in class. In the next lesson, we're going to get into some very basic animation and talk about onion skinning. I'll see you then.